Ben Beare and I'm a physiotherapist at Queen Square, and today I'm going to talk to you about neurorehabilitation online, or N-Rol.
And I'm Dr. Catherine Doogan, and I've been working on N-Rol, and I'll be also talking to you today.
So N-Rol was set up as a result of the COVID crisis for people post-stroke or post-brain injury. We were set up as a result of the COVID crisis with the kind and generous fundraising and support of the Same You charity. We realised that patients were being discharged home very quickly and therefore would not necessarily have access to as much rehabilitation as they usually would, and so therefore we set up a service to support any community input they were receiving. So over 15 weeks in total, from April 2020 to the end of July 2020, we received a total of 144 referrals across 23 London boroughs and 5 home counties. All these patients were screened for inclusion, and 49 people were not able to take part, and I'll talk about the reasons why in a second. 3 potential participants did not have enough technology to be able to participate, and so we enrolled a total of 92 patients. These patients were screened for their inclusion, but also we completed outcome measures. We completed the SSEQ, the Stroke Self-Efficacy Questionnaire, a validated questionnaire, patient-rated outcome. And also we completed a new outcome measure, the N-Rol, which was developed for the COVID crisis and had components of measures that were relevant to the COVID crisis. So sadly, after we completed outcome measures, 6 patients then developed other medical complications or support issues that meant they weren't able to take part. So we therefore treated a total of 86 patients. We offered over 3,000 patient sessions, but in the end we delivered 2,332 with a UTA rate, unable to attend rate, or DNA rate of 28%. This meant that over the treatment period between April and the end of September 2020, we had on average 6 patients per group, and we provided 27 sessions per participant. So I think it's really important for us to talk about why some people were not able to participate if people were setting up a similar service. And generally, we found that a quarter of patients did not meet our inclusion criteria. We set our criteria as being within 6 months of discharge from hospital post-stroke or brain injury. Also, there were a quarter of people declined, did not want to take part in any online services, and another quarter did not want to take part in group rehabilitation. And then there was another proportion of people that felt they had already recovered well enough, and so no longer felt they needed our input. Then I think it's also important to understand why some people were not able to attend sessions. And we see here that some patients were starting to get themselves back into their normal life, and that's what we were encouraging. So therefore they were sometimes too busy to attend, which we were actually encouraging to get involved in their normal life. Some people were started to have hospital appointments, so they were not able to attend. And then there was a proportion of people who forgot. And this comes to a really important point about other people that were involved in our service. We were very lucky to have volunteer support from Pedro Douglas Kirk, Joe Ward, and also Sasha Davis, who all gave up their time to ring patients and ensure that they attended sessions, but also to give them tech support to help them set up the sessions, and also to prepare them for sessions, which that session preparedness was really important for their participation, but also made more people turn up for sessions. So I think it's a really important part of any online service that people are setting things up. So I was in charge of the physical component of N-Rol. And what we did is I stratified people into the service according to 3 levels of physical ability. And also we had stratified people who had upper limb impairment to 3 levels of ability. We also received kind support from Kate Bull, who provided seated and lying Pilates appropriately. So we were able to give a component of functional fitness in multiple anatomical planes, cardiovascular fitness, and also upper limb rehab. And for people where it was appropriate, this meant delivering up to 4 sessions per week per participant. So they were getting a really good additional dosage to whatever they were receiving in the community. If participants had any barriers to rehab, such as pain or things like getting on and off the floor, I was also able to give them one-to-one sessions where I was able to problem solve those pain problems or those functional problems, so that it meant that we were able to maximize their participation. This meant we delivered over the treatment period a total of 1,400 7 physical therapy sessions for the 86 participants.
Thanks, Ben. I set up the talking therapies part of N-Rol. So as Ben said, all of the patients were screened before they came onto the service. And at that screening, that was mainly done by occupational therapists, they talked through the reasons the referrer had referred the patient for the different types of groups that we had on offer. And they also identified during that screen other areas that perhaps the patient would benefit from, so other different types of groups. So everybody came in to enroll at an initial group session called Meet the Team or Meet the Neurologist, and that was attended by either Professor Alex Leff or Professor Nick Ward. And this was a way of, finding out what N-Rol was. It was a very different service to they were used to, and we answered any questions at that initial session about any concerns or worries that they might have had about the online part of it or the group part of therapy, or just sometimes kind of maladaptive or worries or concerns or health beliefs around the reasons or causes that they had a stroke or brain injury. And recovery, a huge question was about when will we get better and how long does it take? So we had 4 sessions of Me, My Stroke and Us that Ben and I ran together, and these covered the different aspects and impacts of stroke and brain injury on the physical impact, cognitive, emotional, and family or work issues. Again, like Ben said, this was predominantly a group intervention because we wanted to have the widest reach we could. But of course, there were times when one-to-one sessions were required, in which case, if there was any risk worries from a psychological point of view or a mood point of view, then I would see them on a one-to-one. Or sometimes there were medical conditions that may have been the patients may have found a bit embarrassing, or they would have been less likely to share it in a group, and so the doctor would have seen them on a one-to-one on Zoom. So the different types of talking therapies that we delivered was emotional support group, a cognitive rehab group, and a caring cafe. And I think personally for me, running the Caring Cafe, where carers would come once a week during their lunchtime, many people were working from home, and this really facilitated their ability to come and have an hour just to think about and to share their experiences of their loved one's stroke and or brain injury. Then there was fatigue groups run by occupational therapists, and we had communication groups run by speech and language therapists, addressing difficulties such as aphasia and cognitive communication. We offered 925 talking therapy patient sessions, and it was very much in conjunction with Ben's physical sessions that people saw each other multiple times during the week in different sorts of scenarios, both physically and in talking therapies. And we really believe that this was something that led to a change and positive impact in their brain recovery. So this slide just really shows that everyone that came through our virtual doors both received some physical and talking sessions, and the fact that they all benefited from both. And so each bar on this graph represents a patient. So we wanted to evaluate this study, and we're undergoing doing some statistics on it. So as Ben mentioned, we administered the SSEQ and the N-Rol a bespoke outcome measure for our service. And we're also have employed a company to come and do some qualitative analysis with patients, their carers, and ourselves. To see, the kind of lived experience of this type of service and what it meant and maybe how it could be improved in the future. And this slide just shows that preliminary results show that there's significant differences in the scores pre and post N-Rol. And so we're very heartened by these results that there is some statistical change and that showing efficacy of our service. But we're also, as I said, collecting qualitative feedback. And this is one of our patients who you may have seen on the BBC News. And he said N-Rol provided not just therapy, it provided hope for me and for my family. It showed that improvement is possible. It tapped into the latest research into brain plasticity, showing that the brain can be rewired after damage from illness or accident. And we've reflected ourselves on what this service achieved and perhaps the limitations of it. So what we set out to do and what I think that we've shown that we've done is set up online group intervention for stroke and brain injury patients. This provided access to numerous appointments with a full MDT, so a full multidisciplinary neurorehabilitation team. Patients have told us that it provided a real sense of structure and routine. And remember, this was during the early months of the first lockdown, because we provided weekly timetables that people kind of set the tone of their week. And this was during a very highly anxious and isolating time. Psychoeducation was given through patients sharing their own stories and listening to other stories. And I think we believe this facilitated insight and awareness, made them feel less alone, and they experienced whatever they were feeling as normal, and that they weren't in this just by themselves. Some people had never met anyone else that have had a stroke or a brain injury, and so I think even seeing people online was and seeing them physically and how they were physically was really impactful. We worked systemically, so we worked with whoever was in their home. This could be husbands, wives, sons, daughters, carers coming in to help, and they shared their painful experiences and also really supported each other. And this kind of peer support proved really, important for their growth, I think, and recovery and understanding of what brain injury is. People have reported feeling very grateful in an incredibly unprecedented time, and they wanted to remain in touch with each other. And they meet regularly on Zoom and continue to provide peer support for each other. So, and kind of finally, just we think that what we've done is create a fully online community rehab service where no one asked or cared about what anybody's postcode was. But Ben and I are only two people. He's mentioned some of the others in the core team that helped, but there were so many therapists in Queen Square, so many speech and language therapists and occupational therapists and physiotherapists that gave us their free time, really, and we're incredibly grateful to them. And of course, we couldn't have done this without the fundraising and the generosity of the people who gave money to CMU to provide this service. And through our experience and the feedback from patients, we know that this is a very important and effective intervention and something that CMU are very keen on providing for other people that may need this type of intervention. Thank you very much.